Jim Nabors stunned the world in 2013. He married his 38-year partner at the age of 82. Fans were unaware of his existence. They avoided paying $4.8 million in taxes because of the wedding. However, it also revealed old wounds. Jim's partner is finally telling their tale 7 years after Jim passed away. The true cause of their 4-decade hiding. The Hollywood controversy that ruined Jim and Rock Hudson's friendship. Everything changed with the liver transplant. You will never see Gomer Pyle the same way again once Stan tells you about their secret lives. Jim Nabors was born in Sylacauga, Alabama, a small community. On June 12, 1930, there were only 8,000 or so residents at the time. His grandmother and his family lived in a modest 3-room home. Life was difficult during the midst of the Great Depression. In Alabama, over 25% of people were unemployed, and many families were barely making ends meet. The family next door was the same. Every day, they battled to eat enough food. Jim learned to maintain his strength and humility from growing up in such atmosphere, teachings that he carried with him throughout his lifetime. Jim struggled with terrible asthma, as if living in poverty wasn't enough. Treatments for asthma were different in the 1930s and 1940s than they are today. He would frequently be confined to bed and have trouble breathing. It was difficult for a boy growing up in the South because sports were out of the question. But Jim resorted to music rather than succumbing to his loneliness. Singing became his passion after he began doing it as a way to kill time. His asthma, which seemed to be a misfortune, ultimately led him along the route that would bring him fame. At a truck stop, his mother, Mavis, put in long hours, waiting tables in exchange for any tips she could collect. Fred, his father, accepted every work that came his way. Fred eventually rose to the position of police officer in the municipality. Although it didn't pay well, the job provided some stability. They raised chickens in the yard for meat and eggs to help put food on the table. The family survived because to their ingenuity and hard work. Jim also learned early on the value of working hard for every little bit. Jim revealed his latent talent in high school. He sang in the church choir and joined the glee club. The quiet, asthmatic boy's large, powerful voice was unexpected, but everyone was taken aback when Jim sang. Teachers and choir directors assigned him solos because of the strength of his baritone. He gained a new sense of confidence that would carry him through life as his voice became the focal point of neighborhood gatherings. Jim studied commerce at the University of Alabama after graduating from high school. He was attempting to take the safe route. However, something changed in college. He made his acting debut after joining the Delta fraternity. People took attention when he appeared in their performances and acts. Jim was relaxed, witty, and natural on stage. Despite his concentration on business subjects, he discovered that performing was what he was drawn to. His undergraduate years demonstrated that he was more than merely intelligent. He was charming and talented. Jim needed a job when he finished school. He relocated to New York City and started working at the UN as a typewriter. The stage was a long way off. He felt isolated and far from home as he put his reports in a large, chilly office. His asthma worsened due to the polluted air in the city. His dream was to work in the entertainment industry. He was merely trying to make ends meet for the time being, though he had to depart New York due to his health. Jim took a position at WRGP-TV, a local television station, after relocating to Chattanooga, Tennessee. He sliced together advertisements and news segments while working as a film cutter. Although it wasn't glamorous, it gave him insight into the backstage operations of television. He would rehearse his routines in the deserted studio late at night, assuming that the chairs represented an audience. His asthma drove him west in the late 1950s. He moved to Los Angeles after packing things. He was employed by NBC there. As a film cutter, he gave nightly performances in small bars during the day. He lived off peanut butter sandwiches and slept very little. However, he persisted because he was certain that someone would notice him if he put in enough effort. Jim developed his life-altering performance at the Horn, a little Santa Monica nightclub. He portrayed a timid, awkward rural guy who would stumble onto the stage before shocking everyone with a loud operatic voice. The combination of comedy and amazing singing was adored by the audience. Producers began attending his shows to see what all the excitement was about because they were so successful. Comedian Bill Dana saw Jim perform one evening in 1962. Jim was given a place on the Steve Alon Show since Bill was so impressed. After performing his hillbilly routine, Jim's voice astounded the crowd. The response was enormous. Jim started receiving calls from producers and agencies all of a sudden. Finally, after years of hardship, his time has arrived. Andy Griffith visited the club one evening. He was astounded by the performances of his neighbors. He proposed giving him a one-time appearance on the Andy Griffith program. Gomer Pyle, a charming but gloomy gas station attendant, would be portrayed by Nabors. Everything was altered by what should have been a single appearance. Everyone was won over by the Nabors' charm. The producers were immediately aware that they had discovered something unique. The neighbors' lives were irrevocably altered by their fortuitous encounter in a tiny club pit, altered American comedy as well. In 1962, when Gomer Pyle made his television debut, he immediately became popular. His catchphrases, Shazayam and Gowie, gained popularity almost immediately. These comments will never be forgotten because of his wide-eyed expression and heavy Southern drawl. Children began to say, "Go to the playgrounds." Adults used it in the workplace. Politicians were powerless to stop it. These amusing expressions went viral. They appeared in cartoon strips. They appeared in advertisements. They even served as inspiration for clothing and toys. The words were innocent and enjoyable. They avoided making overt references to God or magic, which was crucial for television at the time. People were moved by Gomer's happiness at a time when the nation was rapidly changing. His remarks were full of amazement and felt secure. Gomer's character gained so much popularity that CBS was left with no other option. Gomer was added as a regular on the Andy Griffith Show within months of his debut. Hundreds of fans wrote letters requesting more Gomer. His humor, friendliness, and ability to counterbalance Andy's somber sheriff persona were all adored by the public. Gomer's stories quickly rose to prominence as some of the program's most cherished elements. He even began stealing other characters' attention. It was uncommon for Nabors to go from guest star to regular. It demonstrated how many individuals found Gomer's kindness and humor endearing. Gomer's achievements continued after that. In 1964, CBS took a risk. They gave him Gomer Pyle USMC, his own show. That was uncommon in those days. Few side characters ever had their own series, and spin-offs were uncommon. However, the gamble paid off. Gomer Pyle USMC was an immediate hit when it debuted on September 25, 1964. People were enamored by Jim Nabors' charming, unsophisticated Gomer and Frank Sutton's irascible Sergeant Carter. Every week, spectators laughed at the combination of Carter's persistent annoyance and Gomer's generosity. Prior to receiving his own series, Gomer had only made appearances in 23 episodes of The Andy Griffith Show. That demonstrated how much he was adored. There were 5 seasons of the program. Fans were given 150 episodes. In terms of Nielsen ratings, it never fell below 10th place. Just after Rowan and Martin's Laughing, it was the second most watched program in America at the time of its conclusion. The collaboration between Sutton and his neighbors was what created the magic. Every moment was entertaining to see because of Carter's loud rage and Gomer's naive charm. Aaron Rubin and Sheldon Leonard realized they had something unique behind the camera. Despite filming in California, they managed to capture the essence of small-town America within a marine post. People continue to purchase the DVDs and watch the reruns now. Jim Nabors appeared in nearly all of the scenes. At the time, that was uncommon. Throughout the nation, his persona came to represent benevolence and generosity. The show's total avoidance of discussing the Vietnam War was one unexpected aspect. America was embroiled in that horrible battle from 1964 to 1969. However, Gomer Pyle never brought it up. CBS and the producers sought to provide a respite from the stress and sorrow of everyday life. Their goal was for the show to feel like soul-satisfying comfort food. They so concentrated on Carter's yelling, Gomer's good heart, and amusing mix. It was successful. For the most of its existence, the show remained in the top 3. American families tuned in to avoid the harsh realities of the times. However, most spectators were unaware of the suffering that Jim Nabors endured behind the jokes and grins. He had to conceal his sexual orientation. Being gay could ruin a career in the 1960s. Numerous staff members and co-stars were aware, and some of them mistreated him as a result. They joked cruelly. They did not include him. They pretended that he was an outsider. His neighbors had to keep quiet out of fear that he would lose everything if he spoke up. Imagine pretending to be happy for millions of people while harboring that worry on a daily basis. Ron Howard and others acknowledged years later that they witnessed what their neighbors endured. They observed the cruel remarks and the aloof demeanor. They witnessed how he wasn't treated with the same respect as the straight actors. Nabors continued, always courteous and professional. Although it was silent, his strength was present. His narrative made people aware of the difficulties faced by gay actors in Hollywood's alleged heyday. It also demonstrated the bravery required to continue. In addition, Nabors put in more effort than the majority of celebrities. His days were 12 hours long. He frequently got up before the sun rose. He had to commit up to 15 pages of conversation to memory each night. He didn't have time to relax or simply be himself. On the weekends and during breaks, he gave performances at concerts and nightclubs. Perhaps in an attempt to avoid the worry and anxiety that dogged him, he made an effort to stay occupied. He was concerned that, even at the height of his celebrity, all would be lost if the truth were revealed. Nobody anticipated Jim Nabors' 1965 debut in the music industry. He was already well known for playing the humorous, sympathetic, and silly character Gomer Pyle. However, He shocked fans by revealing a side of himself when he joined with Kolya Records. Gomer's high-pitched drawl was nothing like his deep operatic baritone. He recorded around 30 albums in the ensuing 10 years. He sung pop, country, and religious songs, but the majority were romantic ballads. The number of albums he produced wasn't the only factor in his success. 12 of them were included in the Billboard Hot 200 list. Additionally, 3 of his albums achieved gold status between 1968 and 1974. Jim Nabors sings Love Me With All Your Heart. His 1966 album even peaked at number 34 on the Billboard list. His rendition of The Impossible Dream achieved unexpected success in Australia in 1968, making it into the top 30. It was unbelievable to fans who only knew him as Gomer. He gained recognition for his music and vocals in ways no one had anticipated. Simultaneously, Carol Bennett and the Nabors developed a relationship that went down in television history. Nabors made an appearance as the featured guest on the inaugural episode of The Carol Burnett Show in 1967. It wasn't an isolated incident. He was the main guest at every season premiere for the following 11 years, till the end of the show in 1978. Audiences agreed when Carol referred to him as her good luck charm. It was impossible to overlook the friendship and chemistry between Burton and his Nabors when they were on stage together, because he consistently brought passion, humor, and memorable music to his performances. People eagerly anticipated seeing him. Nabors found time for the concert despite his hectic schedule. His participation was interpreted by fans as a sign that the season was off to a fantastic start. In his own variety shows, his Nabors likewise stole the show. The Jim Nabors Hour, which ran from 1969 to 1971, featured comedy, music, and well-known characters from his past. In 1969 and 1974, he also starred in TV specials. His dancing was a different story, but his singing was always exceptional. His Nabors were the first to acknowledge that he lacked rhythm, and he frequently ridiculed himself for it. He attempted an audacious dancing routine during a live performance and ended up tearing his pants on stage. He shared everyone else's laughter rather than feeling ashamed. His willingness to make fun of himself and convert a misstep into a highlight was evident in the moment, which became part of his charm. Nabors established what would become to be one of the most cherished customs in American athletics in 1972. At the Indianapolis 500 in Indiana. He sang the song Back Home. Again, he kept returning since the fans adored it so much. In total, he performed the song 34 times live between 1972 and 2014. Tens of thousands of fans sang together with his powerful, deep voice at the Speedway. He was supported by the Purdue marching band, and the occasion always made him smile. A video of his performance was shown prior to the race, even though his health prevented him from attending in person. The occasion was filled with heartfelt farewells and tributes as he performed it. For the final time in 2014, fans viewed him as one of their own, and Nabors had grown to be an integral part of the race. In the late 1970s, Nabors didn't strive to follow trends as musical tastes evolved. Rather, he moved to Ranwood Records, a label that emphasized classic pop and easy listening. While the rest of the world was switching to rock and disco, his Nabors continued to do what he did best. Due to his recognizable voice and poignant songs, his devoted followers continued purchasing his recordings.